It's underway at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on TSN and on CTV. Well, Serbia's Olympic Committee is calling the deportation of Novak Djokovic a great injustice after the world's #1 had his immigration appeal dismissed by a 3-judge panel in an Australian court early this morning. The unanimous verdict upheld a decision made on Friday by the immigration minister to cancel the 20-time major winner's visa. Djokovic could face a 3-year ban on returning to Australia. Following the ruling, Djokovic issued a statement saying, "I'm extremely disappointed with the court ruling to dismiss my application for judicial review of the minister's decision to cancel my visa, which means I cannot stay in Australia and participate in the Australian Open. I respect the court's ruling, and I will cooperate with the relevant authorities in relation to my departure from the country. I'm uncomfortable that the focus of the past weeks has been on me, and I hope that we can all now focus on the game and tournament I love. I would like to wish the players, tournament officials, staff, volunteers, and fans all the best for the tournament. Finally, I would like to thank my family, friends, team, supporters, and my fellow Serbians for your continued support. You have all been a great source of strength to me." So, what does this mean for the Australian Open, which begins tonight? Djokovic was set to take on Miomir Kecmanovic in the opening round. A lucky loser, world number 150, Salvatore Caruso, will now take his spot. Djokovic was the 3-time defending champion of the Australian Open. He's won the tournament a record 9 times and hasn't lost at the event since 2018. Djokovic is currently tied with Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal with 20 Grand Slam titles, the most all-time. With more, here's ESPN tennis analyst Darren Cahill.
The players have had a lot of differing opinions and emotions about all of this, but now it's just relief that a decision has been made one way or another, and they can attack the first major of the year. It does certainly change the draw, though, with a lucky loser going into Novak's position. And the big benefactors, Matteo Berrettini, the Italian, he was in Novak's quarter of the draw. And the 2 other big guns in the top half are Alexander Zverev, who's gunning for his first ever major, and he's my pick to win it now. And also the 20-time champion, Rafael Nadal. He's up there as well. Remember also, if Rafa makes a big run here in Melbourne and wins it, he'd be the one that pulls ahead in the major race of Federer and Djokovic. And that would certainly rub a little salt into the wound of Novak from what he's experienced in Australia.
Now, the ATP also releasing a statement saying today's decision to uphold Novak Djokovic's Australian visa cancellation marks the end of a deeply regrettable series of events. Ultimately, decisions of legal authorities regarding matters of public health must be respected. More time is required to take stock of the facts and to take the learnings from this situation. Irrespective of how this point has been reached, Novak is one of our sport's greatest champions, and his absence from the Australian Open is a loss for the game. We know how turbulent the recent days have been for Novak and how much he wanted to defend his title in Melbourne. We wish him well and look forward to seeing him back on court soon. The ATP continues to strongly recommend vaccination to all players. And Canadian Vasek Pospisil, who created the Professional Tennis Players Association alongside Djokovic in 2020, spoke out on Twitter saying Novak would never have gone to Australia if he had not been given an exemption to enter the country by the government. He would have skipped the Australian Open and been home with his family, and no one would be talking about this mess. There was a political agenda at play here with the elections coming up, which couldn't be more obvious. This is not his fault. He did not force his way into the country and did not make his own rules. He was ready to stay home. So let's recap Djokovic's last couple of weeks down under with the SC timeline. January 4th, the 9-time Australian Open champ announced that he was heading to Australia after he was granted a medical exemption by the tournament. Now, he shared this picture on social media, letting his fans know that he was heading down under. January 5th, after Djokovic arrived in Melbourne, his visa was canceled. He was denied entry and told to leave the country. His lawyers began the process of appealing the decision. Djokovic was held at an immigration detention hotel in Melbourne. He asked to spend his quarantine period in a rented apartment, but he was denied. Now, back to last Monday, January 10th. Djokovic won his initial appeal after an Australian judge overturned the government's decision to cancel his visa. He posted on Twitter to announce the news. On Wednesday, after being confirmed as the #1 seed, agreed. Djokovic released a statement where he apologized for filling out his travel documents incorrectly and attempted to explain his timeline in December after receiving a positive COVID test. Here's part of his statement. I felt obliged to go ahead and conduct the L'Equipe interview as I didn't want to let the journalists down, but did ensure I socially distanced and wore a mask except when my photograph was being taken. While I went home after the interview to isolate for the required period, on reflection, this was an error of judgment, and I accept that I should have rescheduled this commitment. Then, over the weekend, Australia's immigration minister revoked his visa once again, and Djokovic's appeal was denied by the federal court on grounds of public interest, thus upholding Djokovic's ban and ruling that he will not be allowed to compete in the Australian Open. Djokovic departed on a flight to Dubai at 10:30 p.m. local time Sunday evening. So all of that brings us to this. The first round of the Australian Open will begin tonight on TSN. Day one will see the likes of Denis Shapovalov, Naomi Osaka, and Rafael Nadal in action. This will actually mark the first time in his career that Nadal will compete in a major without Djokovic or Federer in the draw.